Welcome to the panel. Like Hugo D'Souza said, it's definitely a very distinguished and learned panel. It is diverse, and you can ask for the best companies in retail, and all of them are there. So I think my job would be very easy, and I'm sure we'll make this a very enriching experience. First of all, I'd like to congratulate RAI for thinking of having an L&D summit. And today we've been having very successful HR summits, and this being the first L&D summit, I'm sure it'll be a 2-day great experience for all retail, HR, and L&D professionals, which is congratulations, Kumar, Lawrence, and team, a great initiative indeed. And when we come back to this topic, I think in these times, I don't know whether to call it turbulent, whether to call it volatile, whether to call it, but then definitely, I think pandemic has been a new learning for us. And it is at these times that we also learn, new ways of working, and now I think new ways of learning too. And fostering a learning culture and kind of ensuring performance, creativity, and fighting resilience, I think has been on everybody's top of mind. And I think people have done a great job to bounce back. Most companies have come back, and be it retail, e-tail, or omni-channel, all these have really worked very well. And this distinguished panel, which comprises of all major companies, be it Reliance, Landmark Group, Welspun, and Future Group, Tata's, Shoppers Stop, and we have also Capgemini, Selvan here. So basically, I'm sure it's going to be enriching. I don't want to really, take much of their time, because they are going to give us a lot of insights, and later maybe we can sum it up. So first, I would like to know, what is it that each of them have been doing to foster a learning culture? I mean, I'm sure they've been addressing all these three, which is very critical. But resilience is something I think would have been on top of mind during the last 1 year. And all of them working from home, keeping them engaged. I'm sure they would have made learning fun. They would have made it very fruitful, engaging, and they come back much more, much more stronger to work, is what each of them would have done. Maybe we'll start with the lady first. There are two ladies, so we can have Bidisha first. Bidisha, having been, in retail for some time, I know her from Future Group days and now with Welspun. Bidisha, you can tell us what you've been doing to actually foster a learning culture.
Thank you so much for that wonderful question, Venkat, and I think a big thank you to the RAI team for having me here, and all my co-panelists, very esteemed speakers, all of you. So thank you so much for this opportunity. So yes, Venkat, very interesting question indeed. And I think, there's this whole joke that I see on Twitter that, every company's digital transformation journey has been COVID. So I think pretty much similar thought that I have is that, what we wanted to do with technology and digital that was in the pipeline for the next 5 years got completely preponed due to this entire pandemic situation that happened. But what have we done specifically to inculcate a culture of continuous learning, to keep people curious? So I think one of the things that we've realized in Welspun, that being a conglomerate, there are people from all walks of life. So there are people who are at, people who really work in the staff, people who are actually at the plant level. So for making learning relevant, I think one of the most important things that has worked for us was to make it fun. So you'll hear, a lot of people doing micro videos, e-learning content, all of that. So I think to a certain level of people, it does connect. But in my, my understanding of the Indian mindset, I've seen that most of us are pretty emotional in nature. We want to connect emotionally to something. So I actually tried something completely different in Welspun. We actually explored with theater. So whether it's talking, passing on a message with, about anything serious in terms of, let's say, governance, in terms of policies, in terms of healthcare, or whether it was about, training a new skill, we've been able to use theater very effectively. In fact, this works wonderfully even in all the plant locations, as well as with all the branched up with spaces. Because for some, we do live theaters, we do street plays, and for the others, we actually shoot these videos on which are actually being played by actors, and we send this across our learning management system. So I think one of the most key ingredients that has helped us connect with people in this time has been make learning fun. The second thing is making learning relevant. Now, again, being a global organization, being a conglomerate with different lines of businesses, every business has a different requirement. So I think what worked for us, while the framework and the construct of the talent framework remains same, but the narrative changed, Venkat. With every organization, we went with a different narrative. So even if we were doing theater, if we were talking to the retail business, we spoke about, situations that actually play out on the store level. If we were talking to the infrastructure team, we actually did situation that played out in that level. So I think making learning fun, making learning relevant, and also making learning democratic. So we do have a personal learning cloud concept. We have one of the largest global leaders who work with us in providing learning at the touch of a button on your phone. But I think what we've done is moved away from the push mechanism where we would only go ahead and proactively assign courses. So that does still happen, but we want people to learn on their own wish and their own will. So we've kept it completely democratic. So learning fun, making it relevant, and keeping it democratic. So what we do currently is that we do give people a tentative list of things that they need to do. But over and above that, we tell people, hey, but even if you're in HR, but want to know about Bitcoin, you want to read about, let's say, how do you do a P&L statement? There is no stopping to that. You can collect learning credits, learning hours, irrespective of the stream of learning that you are, irrespective of the stream of learning that you are in working. So we don't believe in putting people in a box. So these are the three things that have been the highlight of success that we've seen in Welspun, and keeping it light and connected to people, keeping it relevant to their real lives, like people could relate to it, and of course using digital learning, but keeping it completely democratic. So that's it from my end, Venkat.
Bidisha, anything that to make them more resilient? Have you kind of had any learning initiatives?
Absolutely. So I think resilience is a state of mind. And I think just to quote, when this entire pandemic started, right, all our plant locations were also completely stopped. Our retail business had also stopped before we went on to e-commerce aggressively. I think storytelling is a very beautiful methodology that we've all discovered recently, but however, it's been part of our culture, the Indian culture, for so many years. So what we did is that we actually invited people across the organization who were at the entry level, at the middle level, and at the very senior level to come and share their stories of resilience when they have faced a hardship, and how and what did they do to overcome it. So you had people who were at graduate engineering trainees to management trainees who came in and shared their stories of how they didn't have enough money, how they sponsored their own education. And then you had people in the middle management who came in and spoke about how they were going through this midlife crisis. They had some personal losses, some financial losses, and how they turned that around. And at the end, I invited the promoters and some of the senior leaders to come and talk about their failure stories. So rather than sharing success stories, I invited them to talk about their failure stories. So this included the Bali Goenka, Mr. Balakrishnan Goenka himself, Mr. Rajesh Mandavewala, all of them coming and talking about where we have gone wrong in the past, how we've recovered, and how we bounced back even stronger than before. So I think this, bottom-up approach of resilient storytelling definitely added to the boost. And what we also did, we did a digital story book where we captured all these stories, and we've shared this with all our employees across the globe, wherein people at their own leisure can also read and see whatever stories are being told through the organization. So I think this one is one of the most highlights that I could think of that I wanted to share with you and the rest of the team listening in today.
Great, Bidisha. Yes, storytelling is a powerful tool indeed. I think that's something great that you brought them to bring resilience. A great idea. Now over to Jeeva. Jeeva, Reliance. I mean, you guys must be having something very different. I mean, today with all the acquisitions and everything which is happening in Reliance, and Jeeva heading L&D for Reliance Retail. Jeeva, what have you to say about fostering learning culture during these times, especially to bring creativity, performance, and resilience? You're, I think, muted, Jeeva.
Yes. Thank you so much, Venkat. Thank you, RA, for this opportunity. And congratulating RA for hosting this L&D Summit for the first time. It's really great. Yeah, during pandemic, I could connect with all the three. You said, resilience, performance, and creativity. So, in fact, I mean, our business model changed during pandemic. There are some new businesses have come up, like GeoMart or Pharma. Those businesses, we got an opportunity to come out with new things. So we are talking about digital learning, we are talking about e-learning, but during this pandemic, we tried many new things. So I could recall even rescue is one of our business where it's e-learning doesn't work. It's all about, hands-on training. They are service technicians and they have to go to the field to repair electronic stuff. So our team has come up with a training lab and training jig. They designed some jig, and the people were asked to do that. It's all, completely crowdsourcing. The concept was designed by our employees. They designed it, and then they also implement it. So in remote places, the training jigs were there. So they have to. It's not a real product. It's not possible for us to move the real product for them to train. So they used this opportunity to design something, and then they learned it, and that we encouraged, and it helped us to reduce our training hours. Training, even the content is not. It was developed by them their own, and in fact, it made a big difference in terms of customer satisfaction. So business impact. So this is one thing, and then second, I could think of process training. We used Bidisha shared good storytelling sessions. But we encourage people to share stories within the stores. We can't really send trainers to train them. So one is, they share the stories of connecting with customers and making sure that the grocery, the essentials are reaching out to our customers on time. So they shared, there was peer learning, and within the stores, they shared story. Every day, they learn something, and then they teach others, and then make sure that they were supporting the community, customers. And simulation is something which, again, we tried new stuff. For onboarding, making sure that the new joiners getting acquainted with the business, with the stores, we piloted with a virtual reality. It's extended reality-based platform, so that the store was created in a virtual platform. So the employees, it is easier for them to do how the replenishments are arranged and how to identify the dump and dispose. So we piloted, and it was really successful. And going forward, we'll do a lot of stuff on that. These are some of the things which is coming to my mind. And resilience is their important thing. So how do we manage people, especially the grocery business, the essentials we are running. So their mental health is very important. So there were a series of initiatives we did to make sure that they're mentally strong, and they were able to bounce back with a higher performance. In fact, our productivity was really, really high during this time.
Great, Jeeva.
And they can't get the
Yeah. Virtual onboarding, I think that's something, it's, I think, an interesting topic. Maybe you should dwell upon it a little more after some time. So can we have Manavi? Manavi is today with Tata Trent, but she has a very strong, background in consulting too, before coming into hardcore retail. So Manavi, over to you. I think you're muted.
Yeah. So thank you so much, RAI, for having me here today, and it's a great opportunity to learn, because this pandemic has been an opportunity to reinvent ourselves. All of us have actually struggled, and it's really insightful to see that how different companies have done it. 2020 will be remembered as a year which actually has taught us lessons which will last a lifetime. Okay, so it's actually it's very rare that you learn so much in a year, and it's very, very interesting that how different companies have done it. I'd like to start off with the group level, at Tata group level, what we did, because we borrowed a lot from the Tata group level, and we also did certain things independently. At the Tata group level, we all know about the Tata Management Training Center, TMTC. So the Tata Management Training Center was completely, it has a physical location, it's based out of Pune, and it is actually just before the lockdown started, there was a digital arm of Tata TMTC that was inaugurated, called the Tata Tomorrow University. And it was actually a time very well timed, that it had a lot of digital offerings which was there for all the Tata Group companies to use. And there were several learning partners offering various digital content. And in fact, we got to know that there were more than 15,000 Tata learners that made use of this platform. Besides this, in a virtual learning space, we at the Tata Group, they actually organized a series of webinars called the Learning Latitudes. Okay, and there were close to 150 webinars organized. The main idea was not only to keep the employees engaged during this time, but also to borrow some ideas and best practices from the best in the industry. So we had people not only from the Tata Group companies, but also from outside the Tata Group, who came and shared their ideas and thoughts. And the topics were varied, like critical to business, leadership, and personal development. And in fact, there we had a lot of storytelling, a lot of learning from different kinds of people. So this was something that was done at the group level. At the organizational level at Trent, we had a leadership development program that was already on, and we actually had to shift it in a virtual learning, or a VILT, virtual instructor learning space. And that was a huge learning for us, because something that we were not prepared. In the course of the year, we also realized that digitization and online consumer behavior had suddenly become very, very important. And if you followed the news, you would have seen that earlier our products used to be sold in Tata Click, and now we have a separate website called westside.com for that. So we organized various sessions to train people to do these things seamlessly. We had a very well-established learning management system, and we could see that there is a lot of visitors, a lot of traffic suddenly in learning management system, because people had time to explore. So we made sure that we have the best content in our learning management system. And we could see there is a lot of self-directed learning that was going on, and we actually encouraged it, because self-directed learning is going to be the way forward. People have to take responsibility for learning and developing themselves. So these are a couple of things that we did, and we continue doing, and it's been a very, very interesting experience.
Great, Manavi. We've seen, West Side, transforming over the last few years, and definitely I think there's a new West Side which is projected, and I think you guys are doing well, and I'm sure learning has been a major kind of, factor to boost and engage the employees also. Great, Manavi. So we'll have from Landmark Group, Alex, he was my ex-colleague, so I know him very well. Brought him into training and development 9 years ago, and he's blossomed to become a HR leader to lead Max and Easybuy today. So over to you, Alex. What have you been doing different now in Landmark Group and in Max?
Thank you very much, Venkat. Firstly, good afternoon to you, to the panelists, to the viewers, and all the organizers of RAI. I think this is an exceptionally well-organized event. To be part of the first ever L&D Summit of RAI is definitely a privilege. Most of the things that have been done, but for the benefit of the viewers, I will, just repeat what has been done. So I have always believed that, learning has to happen outside the classroom. And it's very important that you take the learning to the learner rather than bringing the learner into the classroom. And for the last many, many years, this is what we have been focusing on, that how do you actually catch somebody when the person is doing right? or when the person has an opportunity to do it something better. Therefore, I think while the learning team definitely has a huge role to play, to play the role of an anchor, but the most important role is played by the manager or the respective supervisor, because in a store, in a format where you have close to around 350 locations, 10,000 people working, you can never have enough trainers who can actually train everybody. So it is very, very important to create a culture where the managers themselves acknowledge the importance of learning. And therefore, we have actually created systems, apart from, of course, the LMS and the theater methodology, classroom sessions. Of course, a lot of formal training has been done. But the most important thing that we try to build is to build the culture of informal learning, where the managers actually understand the importance of learning. They catch the person in the moment, give the feedback, because that's the most powerful moment, when you can actually give somebody, how can this be done better. So these are some things that we have done. For example, also partnered with some organization. For example, we partnered with the National Institute of Fashion Technology in Bangalore to do a certification course for an year, where people who did not have the opportunity to do a fashion degree could actually earn a fashion degree in tech or design. That's something that we have done. During the COVID, when the lockdown was in place, we run a contest called the Max Consumer Challenge, where we had close to around 400 people, some 30 plus teams, who actually sat together, which consists of store managers, regional team members, cross-functional teams, and came together and said, what can be done? Now, given the situation, how is it that we can increase our sales? Right? How is it that we can ensure that we create some alternative channels of sales? And this actually was such a tremendous project that we saw exceptionally brilliant ideas coming out of it, and people learning. And we ran this contest for almost a month, where they presented what they feel needs to be done in terms of alternative sales. How do we overcome this situation? How do we cut down costs? So it was, I feel, one of the most powerful things that has happened in the last couple of years, if I may say. Apart from that, we have done gamification for some people, because the first quarter of this year, people were literally sitting out of home, not really knowing what to do. Some of them were very, very busy, like HR in admin, and some of them in product teams were very busy. But there was a majority of people who actually didn't have much on their plate in the first quarter. And we use that opportunity to actually use some gamified courses, where people, completed some lakhs of hours of training, and they never for a moment felt that they are not working. So these are some things that we did to build this culture of learning. And the latest thing that we have done in the last quarter is to build a system which we call praise, right? And we sometimes feel that the learning team in many organizations works very parallelly to the core HR or to business, right? So they run calendarized programs. The calendar is published at the beginning of the year. But what we actually did, as I said, was to take the learning to the learner, and in the moment is we instituted a system called Praise, which is a monthly feedback system, where we said you review every person in the store on a monthly basis, tell them what that person is good at, what he or she has done exceptionally well, what could have been done better. And this is a data that the store manager has, I have at the corporate level, to see what are the kind of learnings that we could deliver at a store somewhere in the east, to see that, okay, how is the last 3 months of feedback, which are the areas that this team needs to develop further. So these are things which we have done. But to just summarize, I think the biggest role that has to be played in learning is the role of a manager or a supervisor. And if we can actually build the person's ownership on learning, I think it becomes a lot more easier, and the learning teams will become more effective and efficient.
Yes, Alex, totally agree with you. I think we need to build ownership, but otherwise it doesn't happen. Glad to know a lot of new initiatives that you're doing, and I'm sure it's going to be, a great learning experience for the employees. So
Thanks.
before I go back to Saurabh, Shopper Stop, basically he's seen a lot of change, leadership change coming in Shoppers, and I'm sure the vision mission, even though is all same, we need to sell, but at the same time I'm sure you would have brought in a lot of things that has come in recently in the recent times, and especially the times, these resilience which has come in at Shoppers. Maybe over to you, Saurabh.
I think first and foremost, I hope everybody on this panel and your family members are absolutely safe. I absolutely pray that this year be a mask-free one and everybody is hale, happy and happy. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest change that this COVID has brought about, that our interactions have become more meaningful rather than first asking what happened to that email that I sent to you. At least the bosses are asking, how have you been and how's your family? I think that's a very, very positive sign. I would also like to thank Rai to bring the right word back to the forum, which is resilience. Because all before resilience, the only word I could hear was VUCA, and then it came to VUCAD, and then we talked about agility. And it was synonymous to speed. Everything has to be Godspeed. But I think what this COVID did was actually put a jolt to the entire world, and it made us pause and reflect back. That is the right thing to do. Are we focusing on the right things? And I think these type of moments, this kind of moments to reflect back are very, very important. So our first reaction, and I'm not saying I did it, I'm saying as a team, as Shopper Stop team, we did it, was to ensure that we reach out to our customers, both internal and external. First, we had to reach out to our internal customers who were stranded out there, who had been serving our customers. And I think, it's important to understand that we treat them as human being first rather than human resource. And to do that, we ensure that we are reaching out to each and every person out there. To the extent we also reached out to our alumni and asked them about how their families are doing, how are they doing. We ensured that people who were stranded, so just to quote an example, there was a certain group who was stranded at a border of Orissa and one of the states, and my colleague out there went actually to arrange the vehicle personally to ensure that he or she reaches the family, because they were staying in PG and apparently all that PG was expired. So things like this, very, very important, where we wanted to send a message that connect is more important than reach. And I think as a representative of L&D, I think that connect is very, very important, because only then we come to know what the employee really wants, rather than just reaching out through any kind of element. The first reaction in such kind of crisis or situations is to put something which will work, immediately for short term. But this pandemic had no date of expiry. It didn't come with an end date. So we had to think long term. We had to think that what could we do? Because giving is very easy. Once you have given, taking back is very difficult. So we had to take steps which will go a long way. So apart from putting across, things like multi-skilling and wellness management programs and stress management program, I think what we did differently was we did sessions like one session was coffee catch-up, where we just connected to understand how are things going back in your family. No agenda, no business transaction at all. Yeah, we had compassion circles where people came and vented out what's happening with them back at their home, and what are some of the challenges we have faced. And they each other, they started helping out, because in resilience, social support is very much required. And these were certain ways to which we showed that we are not only responsible for making them learn, we are also responsible for making them feel valued. And I think as a learning partner, we need to understand or relook at this word of learning and development, and probably make it as development through learning. Our main job is to develop people through learning, and that was the core focus. By the way, as you very rightly mentioned, amid so many changes. So just to give an example, when this pandemic happened, we were actually working on implementing SAP, where 60, 70 systems we were combining together. And the effort was for about 1.5 years. So when this came, everything went to a complete full stop. But the organization came together, all the CXOs worked together, the team worked together to ensure that the show must go on. And we probably one of those first organizations in the world who went live on SAP virtually. Plus, there were also some structural changes that happened. But the change that I see that has happened because of this, the positive change, is earlier the retail segment used to work like a relay race, a baton being passed, buyer passes on the baton to supply chain passes on to the store, so on and so forth. But what COVID has taught us is to work like a football team, where football is that goal, the purpose, and everybody who gets the ball ensures that he or she takes it closer to the goal post. I think that should sustain, and that's my definition of a resilience. That once you come out of it as an organization, as an individual, you need to come out as more stronger and more together. That's from my side. I guess you're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So development to learning, that's a new concept. I'm sure that's something different. And implementing SAP virtually, I think must be a case study. I think you can publish that, and how the learning part of it itself would have been, the most difficult part. Great, Saurabh, congratulations. So we have finally, as they say, last but not the least, the consultant from Capgemini. I think what you've spent, Selvan, about 20 odd years with Capgemini and been working with the retail vertical for a long, long time. So I'm sure you're going to bring a lot of insights for us practitioners, which is going to be very different from your point of view. Over to you, Selvan.
Yeah, thank you, Venkat, and thank you, RAI, for inviting me. In fact, as you rightly pointed out, I'm the odd person out here. Possibly it was by design that, okay, I can learn a lot from all of you from a cross-industry perspective, and also share a few perspectives what we do from a IT services perspective. So just to let you know that you might be already aware, Capgemini is 250,000 people across the world, based out of Paris as a headquarters, and we have our own university in Paris, which is the brainchild for all the training and development that we do across the world. And so to come to this particular point about the pandemic and how do we as an organization try to do something around resilience, I think interestingly we did a sort of a research, I would say, as to what happens when a sort of disruption happens in the society, and how do we address it as families, as individuals in the society. And that's something very interesting what came out, because if you look at it, when something not expected happens in the family, one thing that we will find is that we might be going to a temple more often, or we might light a lamp in the house. And these are all basically nothing but rituals that we practice. So it takes us back to basics, and we start looking at certain rituals which have been practiced over the years, and that helps us build resilience. Whether we like it or not, that helps us build the resilience. And this was a very interesting discovery that we did. It's not something very India specific. It's something across the globe that happens, that whenever anything negative happens, people tend to go back more into practicing rituals. And then we figured out that as an organization, we have evolved over a period of time having a lot of corporate rituals. And these corporate rituals were very good when we were small in size, growing, and they were practiced very regularly. And it can be something like celebrating a birthday of a team member, or when you do an order win, how do you go around cutting a cake for it, or when you do a delivery for a customer, how do you really reward the employees there? There are so many small rituals which we practiced when we were small. But when acquisitions came the norm, like we have done about 60 acquisitions in the last 60 years, Capgemini. So you can understand how rituals can get diluted and forgotten. And we have grown in size also to maintain that. So what learning and development team did, as far as the university did, was to come up with a course, a new course, which was around corporate rituals of Capgemini. In fact, we didn't want to call it as corporate rituals of Capgemini. It was not going to be received nicely. We called it as ways of winning as the title for the course. But inside that, there were all the rituals that Capgemini as an organization had practiced over the years, and we ran that course across the world. Now, what is the impact of that? We are not sure because we have not measured the effectiveness. But what we did was adapt something from society, what happens, and try to implant it into a corporate structure. And we hope that that helped us build a lot of resilience in the organization. The second point which came out of that study was that assume that something happens really not so good in the family. What we found was that your neighbors came to your house to inquire about what's going on, how are you, to console you, to really provide you strength and say that, look, I think nothing to worry, we are all there. Some sort of an emotional support. Your relatives will be coming from distant places. So you will find that different sets of people who you don't interact with on a daily basis, they all come together and they try to provide some sort of a assurance, a sort of emotional assurance that things will become positive. You can stand up to this sort of negative thing. So we said, okay, why not we emulate this in the learning and development space? And we created consciously programs which were for unconnected people, I will say. So it is not for with a particular purpose and say that, okay, here is a Java program meant for so-and-so target audience, nothing like that. You'll find an architect, you'll find a salesperson, you'll find someone who's a solution designer, completely different people who are not connected at all on real life or who don't come together on a training program, but we ran programs for them together. The whole purpose was not the training that went in. The whole purpose was the participants sharing together what they feel about what's going on around them and to assure each other, saying that, look, I think we can all come together and overcome this crisis. That made wonders. Okay, in fact, a program like that typically will have about 100 plus people. And we had designed it in such a manner that interactions among the people were too many rather than the content what was provided to them. So the whole objective was, how do you bring the messaging across people among themselves to build the resilience, saying that together as a team, we can resolve it. So these are, I would say, not the normal things what we would have done regularly if the pandemic was not there. But I think we did something very different, which was appreciated a lot by the leadership, saying that, yeah, I think you people have risen to the situation and try to address it very differently with the backing of a research. And I think that has been appreciated by all of them. I thought, let me share that with all of you as some of the examples. 2 points, rituals, go back to the basics, the corporate rituals. How do you build it for better resilience? Second is, how do you get disconnected people into a group and encourage social interactions so that you build resilience into them to overcome any untoward incident or a crisis? That's what I wanted to communicate, Venkat. Thank you. You're on mute, Venkat. You're on mute, I think, Venkat, or I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I think.
Okay.
So thanks, Selvan. It was great insights. I think 2 points, very, very powerful points. Great learning for us too. And yeah, before we open up for questions to the audience, maybe I thought I'll take 2 minutes, pick your brains, 2 minutes of each of yours. I wanted to understand from you, from your point of view, what do you think is going to be the future of learning, given, the circumstances, which I think definitely new ways of learning has come in, and how is it going to evolve over a period of time, and how is learning going to look like in the years to come? Over to, maybe we can start with the same order. Bidisha, you will start off and then we can have
Sure. So excellent question again, Venkat, and I was seeing some of the questions on the audience, so great questions coming there. But I love to answer this question because I'm doing a lot of work in the future of learning. So I think the future of learning will be hybrid. We will continue to do certain things which we do physically, but a lot of it will happen digitally. So that's one in terms of the platform of technology. But I think the future of learning will get connected to very much a part of your career skilling part. So I still feel that, just to give you an example, there is so much information today that we get when we interview a candidate, right? So when a candidate comes in, but today, if you look at learning management system and, portfolios that we have, are we really, is the L&D team and the talent team really talking to the talent acquisition team? Because when this gentleman or this lady is coming in, there's so much of information that's getting acquired there. So I think we will need to depend on AI and technology to help us get the information even while the person's being interviewed. From that, connect that to their career, their competencies, their goals, directly link that. And a system which then tells you that to move in a career level. So for example, if I'm a management trainee or a GET and I've entered the organization, I should be clearly able to say, this is how I ranked in my interview versus my skills and competencies. This is where I should have been at. This is really my gap. And in the next 2.5 years, I can aspire to be either a specialist or a generalist. Now, if I need to be a specialist, these are certain skills and competencies I will need to acquire. If I need to be a generalist, these are certain skills and competencies. So I think today, the biggest challenge that I see with, HR and tech and PLCs that are coming in, that it's all in fragment. What I see happening very positively with the AI coming in is that all of this will start speaking to each other. And at the same time, as an employee, I'm going to have all of this on my phone. So today, from the minute I join, like my vision, it is going to be this, that if I join, I get my interview score, I get everything from day zero of my onboarding. I have a complete career charter that is linked to my growth and development. I see that happening in a big way. I see that a lot of learning also happening informally. What I mean by that is, I think we must never undermine the power of social media and using learning. So certain, there are many tools, many collaboration tools in the market today. So the power of learning from your peers, from your crowds is something that I think will completely be defining the way we look at learning in the future. And I think what will happen is, like I call it, it's called bursting the bubble. I still see a lot of, especially large organizations, you have teams and teams within teams and silos there. So I think we will want to look at technology, which will help us completely burst this bubble, where information, knowledge, all of that will rest in the palm of your hand on your phone. You anywhere, being anything, anywhere, any part of the city, any part of the country, time zone, you will be able to access learning. So I think this is a very, very interesting and promising time for all leaders in technology and learning, because this is really where we can make that paradigm shift. And thanks to this situation that we were at, we've really pushed ourselves, we've really challenged ourselves to experiment. How do you really make learning macro and micro? So what I mean by that is, while you have a macro plan from an organization level, you will also need to have customized micro learning plans individually as well. So these are 2-3 things, Venkat. I'm mindful of the time, that I would recommend as the future. I would vision, and this is the future that I look forward to. And I think learning becoming more related to who I am, what my job is, what my career will look like. And also for me as an individual, I could learn and pick up skills between different functions and not just grow in one vertical that I have. And of course, just to sum up, using social media, using collaborative tools to learn from my peers, from my juniors, from my seniors, and completely bursting this learning bubble where people use knowledge as power, completely bursting that. And all of that integrating into a beautiful, technologically advanced system, which all speak to each other. So that's my hope and passion. And I think with all the right partners and all the right brains in the right place, we will definitely get there. That's it from me. Thank you, Venkat.
Great, Bidisha. You summed it up well. Over to Jeeva.
Yeah. So Bidisha also touched upon a point, how you are going to converge. So it reminds me of somebody, I listened to them recently. HR is nowhere. I mean, it's going to be called as HR, human resource. It's going to be called as human computing resources. So it's going to be HCR. So It's not about how we are going to handle human separately and computer separately, because it talks to each other. How you're going to enable this partnership is going to be the future. And so artificial intelligence doesn't come on its own, so somebody has to develop, right? It's all about how you are ensuring or enabling the partnership between human and computer. That is, so your learning also should be blended. It should be blended learning. It should be hybrid model, as she rightly said. And that's going to be the future of learning. You are going to use trainers and social learning, peer learning, and then still, we are going to bounce on reliant technology. So how we are looking at currently is when you're talking about a learning culture, if it's a full-based learning culture, I don't think the ownership will be there with the manager or leader or whoever. It's not about the company, it's about the individual. So as an individual, how I'm going to really learn. So in that case, the pressure is on the organization to make it more relevant. How you are going to make it in the flow of learning, in the flow of work. I'd not even restrict to work. It's a life also. Even wherever they go, wherever they cross, they have to learn. So we need to create that excitement, and it should be relevant to the role I'm doing. So it starts with the role-based certification, role-based learning. I don't want to learn something which is not there, which is not applicable to my learning. That's one. Second thing is strive to perform. How I'm going to performance is going to be a constant pressure. Productivity is going to be there, even though I learned and I'm doing it. And somebody has to, the learning system, the technology should be enabling, should be pushing data or content to me based on my productivity levels. If my particular KPI is I'm not able to achieve that KPI, the system should be able to push the relevant content to me. And it's a completely competency-based, AI-enabled learning, so that it is so relevant for me to learn. And it is not enough, because I'm also having aspirations. So my organization should set a platform to me to grow in the organization. So aspirational learning. So again, I'm picking it up from Bidisha. She talked about how we are going to liberate talent. So liberate talent is how you're going to make it open. So there is a beautiful concept called T. It's not about only breadth of learning. It's about the depth of learning as well. So no more generalists are required. No more specialists are required. Generalists are required. We need to learn more than what is required. So in fact, in our organization, we are setting up an academy called Academy of Future Skills. We have identified some of the future skills and making it completely open to people who wants to learn, who wants to start their career in those future skills. They can do that, so that it is not restricted to one particular role, one particular function. You have that ability to reskill and upskill, and then move ahead. And then gig workforce is also a lot of organizations have adopted. So how you're going to give it in small modules? I learn something new. I also experiment in smaller portion, and then develop my competency and capability, and then move forward. So this is going to be an exciting journey in front of us, and everyone wants to learn. First of all, this COVID situation taught us how to mute and unmute ourselves. Sometimes we miss it, but yeah, it helped us to do that.
Yeah. Jeeva, maybe I may have to mute you now because we're running short of time. I think great insights. So we can just have a minute everybody can take, because there are a lot of questions coming from the audience. So thanks, Jeeva, for that. I think it's quite futuristic. Can we have Manavi? Why didn't a minute you can tell us? I'm sure it's going to be a tough task.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just take a minute. So a couple of things which, pandemic hit us exactly a year back. And while we don't have a crystal ball to predict what the future is going to be, but based on the trends that we see, there are a few things which are very clear cut. So one of the things is that I see that e-learning becoming, attitude towards e-learning is definitely going to change. And it has already started changing. People are adopting e-learning in a much bigger way than it was earlier. Second is that I also feel that there is going to be a move from L&D content creation to curation. Okay. So because there is so much already available, there is no need to reinvent the wheel again and again. And there will be increase in self-directed learning. And the L&D team has to be very, very agile now. I see that in terms of the skill and development of the L&D team has to be very, very high. Businesses are actually looking at learning leaders to help organizations adjust to the new normal. So we actually have to upscale and ourselves. And if you see, the emphasis on continuous learning is going to be there, because all those organizations which have actually managed this crisis quite well are those companies where there is a lot of emphasis on the continuous learning. And if you see, the culture of a company which has continuous learning is not learning, it's not a culture of compliance, but it is a culture of proactive learning. So we all should aim towards getting there into a culture of proactive learning. So I just want to keep it short and over to the next speaker.
Yeah, thanks, Manavi. So can we have Alex just take 60 seconds exactly?
I'll take less than that, Venkat. So I think most of the panelists before me have already covered it, but I think two things which I think are going to be the future of learning. One is, I think learning is going to be more personalized and precise by using technology like AI and machine learning. And the second, I think, is that the focus is going to be a lot more on informal learning, which may include social learning as well, than formal learning. I'm not saying that formal learning is going to go away. Formal will be there, but I think a lot more of learning will happen in the informal manner. So I think these are the two things that I think should come, and it will be good for learners as well.
Great, Alex. You're within the 60 seconds. So over to Saurabh. Yeah. Saurabh,
so I'll try to match up with Alex. But yes, taking points that everyone put together, I think there is a sea change that has happened. And when I say sea change, it's for the alphabet C. So learning, I believe, going forward would be crisp, because suddenly from an 8-hour classroom session, you've gone to 1.5 hours interactive sessions. It has to be collaborative, because as everyone is saying, more generalistic approach, and with reducing manforce, you need to have a multi-skilled workforce, and therefore you need to be more collaborative, more generalistic in approach. That's the kind of learning we have to ensure. It has to be definitely curated, where the choice lies with the learners, what to pick and what to leave. And it also has to be continuous, as Manavi said. I completely agree with her, because this is just not going to stop here. The disruption or the dynamism continues. But very, very importantly, we also need to make a shift in ourselves as a professionally from learning and development. We have to be learners first. We'll have to continuously update ourselves, and we'll have to come up with new and innovative ways to connect. So we've gone from digitization, then to digitalization, and now we are looking at being digitally dexterous. So where processor and other things are automated, now we have to continuously look as to how our workforce is can adapt to newer technologies and can do it in the fastest way. I think we just need to develop them on that front without losing the human connection. Thank you.
Thanks, Saurabh. So, Selvan?
Yeah, thanks, Venkat. I'll keep it short. So 2 large-scale experiments that we are doing globally. One is on the use of virtual reality and augmented reality around learning. How do we really deploy them? Whether it's onboarding, whether it is improving productivity, you'll find that we are seeing that the applications are enormous, and it makes it like what people are saying, learning in the flow of work, everything becomes a reality with AR and VR. That's one of the big experiments which we are doing. The second one is a very different concept, which says, why can't everyone in the organization be a trainer, and why can't everyone in the organization be a learner? So we have questioned this as a basic philosophy and have created a platform which is completely democratic, where anyone can launch a training program from across the globe and anyone can participate in the program. So it's the entire choice is given to every employee to either to teach or to learn, and everything is available on the very intelligent platform that we have created. It's a very wonderful system, and therefore it actually says that L&D team takes a back seat and lets the learner or the employees take the forefront of this learning journey. So that's a big change that we are seeing, how things are going to evolve in the future. So these are 2 things, AR, VR, and this complete democratization of learning is what we are foreseeing. Thank you, Venkat.
Thanks, Selvan. That was quite precise. And coming to questions from audience, I think we have quite a few questions. We can't take all of them. Maybe the top 2 is what I thought. Maybe we can take who came in early. So the first one was, most people concentrate on training their employees. What about their C-suite? How should they be trained and upgraded so that they can bring in such a culture? Alex, you want to take that question?
Yes, Venkat, thank you. I think when you look at the C-suite leaders, the learning there, happens, but not necessarily others are getting exposed to what kind of learnings they are going through. Like, for example, if somebody is going through a executive coaching intervention, not many may know that the person is going through it. So I think that has been there for ages, that, the personalized learning is happening. So for example, in Max, every year we do a 2-day session for all our, top leaders, the top 25 leaders who go through an intervention for 2 to 3 days, which also involves group coaching or in some cases individual coaching. And also, I think if you look at the people who are in the leadership level, I have been, fortunate enough to actually have leaders who have been, who create book summaries, send it to their, team and say, go through it. Let's have a session and, discuss what you have learned from it, right? What kind of learnings can we have? So I think it is a group learning which happens, at that level. And I think that question also has, how do you create that as a culture? And definitely, I think that's spot on, that it has to be driven top down when the leaders themselves are facilitating sessions. For example, we have got the C-suite leaders to come and do sessions on topics that are not even relevant to corporate, right? Something like, how do you do photography, right? Or how do you manage your finances? How do you do your, career? And this actually creates a culture where the people who are participating know that these leaders are keen on teaching and learning. And so these are some things that happen, but unfortunately, the larger audience in the company doesn't know what is going through, because these are more in pockets which happens.
Great. Thanks, Alex. So there is a question directed to Bidisha. It's basically saying, what does it say? Interesting to note use of storytelling and experience sharing for resilience. Congrats. Do you have any similar interesting experiments on improving productivity and or creativity at the shop floor?
Great, thank you. I'm not sure who sent this question, but brilliant question. And actually, do we know who sent this question? Any idea? I would like to acknowledge the person for the question.
It was sent by GRV.
Oh, wonderful. So thank you for that. And GRV also happens to be my ex-boss from Future Group. So this is really this wonderful to answer this question from GRV. So my humble experience that I have seen from the perspective of doing things in the shop floor, and this I have used many times with in my Future Group experience, especially we did this experiment in Brand Factory, where we actually took the trading or the learning to the shop floor, because, we would talk about customer service, we talk about selling, and this would typically happen in a classroom. And of course, you do role plays. I sort of changed that concept, and I said, what if we take the classroom, forget the word classroom, we called the shop floor associates on the shop floor, and we had everything we needed there. You had an entire store in front of you. So right from your cashiering training to doing, customer service, where we played customer with the actual clothes. So then I think that sort of shifted the game for us. And this was also very practical and easy to implement, because stores would open at 11:30. For a few days, we would call associates early in. So what I want to sum it up in one word is to saying that using real life simulations is much more powerful than talking about, any concept that you want to talk about in a classroom session. So I think the future of learning, again, Venkat, coming back to that, will be how realistically you can display this and how realistically you can use this on the shop floor rather than taking people away from it. I think that was one. And I think another interesting concept, in fact, JRV was driving this in our Future Group. We had a concept of store guru, where we had every store had a guru or a trainer within the store, who then understood the pulse of what's really required. And then from the group office, we would, give him information, give her ideas of how to conduct the training, equip the person, and let the person be in the environment. Again, highlighting the fact to increase productivity, to increase creativity, one must be in the environment where the actual work is taking place, rather than taking people out of it and saying, okay, hey, this is idealistic, this is perfect, now go back to the shop floor and work. And JRB, I think what I've also seen that, because we have so many youngsters in retail, they're very big on, TikTok, ex-TikTok, or whatever media otherwise they use. So using technology, using social media, a lot of them have a lot of followers. You'll be surprised to know one of the, I remember doing a survey, and they had mentioned that one of the first things they buy with their salary is a smartphone. So all of them are on Facebook and whatever other mediums of, reaching out to people is. So I would recommend, and I do this very much in Welspun also, we call them brand ambassadors or influencers, so if you could, were to take this whole store guru concept now digital, you look at having influencers who would, either put up a video of how they, sold something beautifully, do a small session on, how he or she can address a customer query. And I think that creates creates a lot of traction, because these people have friends and people who are in various retail stores across India. So I think that is another medium. And of course, I'm a big fan of using fine arts, puppetry, theater, street play, music, all of this as mediums of learning. So I have a complete ban on presentation, PPT, or any lecture mode where the trainer doesn't really seem visible as a person who's standing out, but the trainer or the facilitator is part of the group and blends with the group. In fact, takes a back seat, and the learning becomes all about the learner. So just to sum it up again, make simulations, real case studies on the shop floor. Use the people who work on the shop floor to be your influencers, your gurus. And third, also use the power of technology to sort of, help them make this all fun. Use theater, art, drama, music, so that it's anything but fun. When people are having fun, they definitely are learning as well. So Jeeva, I hope I've lived up to your expectation of answering this question. It's quite a privilege to get a question from my ex-boss. So thank you, Lawrence, for bringing that up. And thank you, Venkat, for giving me that question.
Bidisha, I know for certain GRB knew that you're the best person to answer that question, having worked with you, I think, and it's very critical and important, especially working in retail. Productivity becomes so very important, and learning plays a major role there. And I'm sure you answered it very well. You summed it up so well, and all of you did a great job. I think I don't need to sum it up at all. I think there has been AI, AR, VR, technology, everything coming in. I think the future is going to be really great, and look forward to a great learning experience and new ways of learning in the days to come. Thank you so much, panel, and thank you, Rai, for this opportunity.